I am Evander and welcome to my channel. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, kindly do so below. What you're about to see isn't just a feature at all. This is an actual full research tutorial session. One question from start to finish on one platform. Today, I want to look at the question climate disclosures and how investors do interpret it. If that means nothing to you, no drama at all. The workflow is the same for any semester paper that you're about to start here. So this is what I've got set up for you. First, start with the research question. And normally this is where I'd open multiple tabs, for Google Scholar, Web of Science, and some AI tools. Yeah, whatever database that you ideally use. Yeah, so there's the question. There's its physical climate risk disclosures and firm valuation, and then Google Scholar returns lots of papers, to frankly speaking. Let's see what SciSpace got for us. So physical climate risk disclosures and firm valuation. Yes, let's run it up. Yeah, so ideally I'd roughly type in the same thing into each tab or database that I open, and you get different results back from everyone. That's half an hour in and you can't even remember what you've already looked at. So this is SciSpace searching for relevant paper from SciSpace itself, the full text, Google Scholar, and then my search library. So I've already got some papers saved in my SciSpace library. That's also kind of like matches the topic that I'm looking at. And Zotero as well, because I've already connected my Zotero to SciSpace. Yeah. So, right, one search, you've got one list that you can actually work with, and there's it. So when I look at the SciSpace papers itself, you can see the title, the author, the journal type. You've got the abstract here to give you a fair understanding or idea of the literature to see if it is even relevant to what you want to do at all. Yeah. And you can see these are the PDF. This one, for instance, is open access. So you can click on it to download the paper yourself and take a read. Yeah, if you want. And there are some instances that you might hit a paywall. So you see this one, get a PDF. It's under the assumption that you've got to pay before you can access this one. But then there are ways that you can manage it. So when you click on it, you get a list of universities. So all that you've got to do is just type in the name of your university. Let's say you name university. So you say University of. So you've got dozens of university here. Yeah. So what happens is you've got to pay, but usually your university have a license for these literatures. So you just type in your university. Let's say University of Sheffield, for instance. You click on it, and you can select more than one university. That is if you're actually affiliated to it. Click continue, type in your institutional email, and then that's it. You get access to the paper. And this is the DOI, or you can just copy the DOI link, in case you want to install it into your Zotero or whatever citation as well. And then they've got the filters here. So you can just filter out and get only open access papers. So let's say you don't have any, so you just want open access papers. That you can filter, and then you get that. Take that filter out. You can filter by. You can also filter by year, publication type, and also PDF. And then the relevance can also do it by citation count, newest, first, oldest, A to Z, Z to A. About, yeah. So that is a science paper, and at this stage, all that we are doing is trying to find relevant literatures. Yeah. So what search engines such as Google Scholar does is they just match keywords, but then SciSpace here searches semantically across a repository of more than, let's say, 280 million papers. Yeah. So this is the end results of that, searching for the papers. And then one question that I would raise fairly before you do in the comment section is that yes, it is fast, but then is it finding, the good papers? I said that is fast but shallow. It's worse than no search at all, especially for a literature review. Yeah, so SciSpace did publish a benchmark study paper. Yeah, and then they ran 200 cross-domain, complex research queries across 5 different search setup. These are the SciSpace, a base mode, SciSpace deep review, LS8 consensus pro mode, and consensus deep mode. Yeah, so 3 different AI models judge every written paper's relevance, and final label was set by majority votes. So that is it. The queries they share relevant labels. Yeah, so you can see that consensus deep won at the first results, but from position 3 almost, science-based deep review was at the very top. That's it. You can see the orange line. Yeah, and for me, that's the bit that actually matters. Yeah, because I'm never screening just one paper. I'm screening dozens of it, like multiple papers. Yeah, so that's it for the benchmark study. A copy of it, a link to it will be in my description. Yeah, so a copy will be in my description if you want to poke into the methodology that's using the benchmark studies. Yeah, so now that we have relevant papers and then we are, confident about how relevant they are because of the methodology used by SciSpace in finding this literature, we just hit straight on and then go into proper literature review mode. Yeah, so you can see the tools here. Yeah, you shall go to tools and select deep research. The other options are we've got semantic research, which uses the Prisma model for 2020. We've got verified report by the agent, whatever you want, but we are doing a deep research here. So you click on deep research, and now we type in our real research question. So I reckon that will be how do investors price firms price do investors price firms physical climate risk disclosures. Yeah, how do investors price firms physical climate risk disclosures? Yeah, so let's just hit the run and see what comes out, what we get out of it. Yeah. So running a deep review, I'll conduct a comprehensive deep review on this one. Yeah. And then I'm not cutting away from this one about this, of course. I want you to see what is actually screening and then how it runs. Yeah, we are doing a literature review here. That's a whole new job. Yeah. So here I'm looking for empirical papers, firm level, portfolio level outcomes, physical risk specifically, just as I've set it out in the research question. So that is the agents at work. So it found 123 relevant papers for the query. How do investors price? So you can see it has sampled out 123 papers out of the initial papers that it accumulated. Yeah, exactly. 123 papers. I'll shift the focus to evaluate methods, market price signal used to value physical climate risk. Yeah, so it's doing the review for you. Yeah. So I'm looking at physical risk specifically, not the transition risk, which is entirely different literature. And this is also disclosure focused. So I'm looking at studies that use TCFD or a more recent IFRS S2 disclosure regimes as the exposure. Yeah. Now executing parallel searches across. Yes, that's the agent doing the work. Searching Google Scholar for papers that relate to Google Scholar. And searching Zotero. Yeah. So remember that at this point, any paper that you don't have access to, or you have to pay for it, you would have gotten access to because your university have the license. If you don't have the license, then I'm sorry, you might have to pay for it. Yeah. Brilliant. Doing the job. Yeah. So thinking deep. I'm saying deep review complete 187 unique papers identified. 7 highly relevant. Now extracting evidence backed insight to answer the research question. And then synthesizing findings on how investors price physical climate risk disclosures. Interesting. Yeah. So this is the review being done in real time. And here, I think this is a very useful tool since you've kind of like using this as a research assistant. You get to go into its thought process, read it, and say like, is this how I would ideally do it? Yeah, so just read the thought process. Market outcome, stock return, firm valuation, cost of capital. Brilliant. I was doing the synthesizer. Yeah, you see the paper that it relates to the reference when it comes to risk premium incorporation. You see the paper that it relates to. Brilliant. Revelation of material losses. Behavioral and short run trading. Like disaster, contents and heterogeneity. Yeah. Boom. And now we've got the final report here, which we can click, open it up, and go through. Yeah. Contents heterogeneity, new relevance. Yeah, so there is the full report. And you can see that it has cited, it said 15 references. So out of all the papers that we found to be relevant, the agent did the synthesis using just 15 literatures that I think here is good for the review. And one thing you can also see the combined reference and how relevant they were to the review. Here, for instance, I can see this paper, the economic consequences of climate-related risk disclosure. The relevance score is 100%. And you say the tag is highly relevant. And it gives you the reasoning why this paper is so relevant to the research. So it shows firm disclose immediate fiscal climate threats, links these disclosures to higher firm value, liquidity, and analysis forecast, indicating investor pricing of fiscal risk info. The second paper is also 100%. Let's go to a paper with a lower score. You can see this one is let's get physical comparing metrics of fiscal climate risk. 66% say it is partially relevant, and it also gives you the reason. You have the abstract here as well. This is 50% firm level climate change exposure. It gives you the reason, the relevance. So yeah, you can then go through it and say, oh, okay, it makes sense. These are the papers that have been cited, referenced in the literature review that was just done. Let's go to an even lower scores here. So 34% says it is low relevance. And the reason is it knows investors misprice climate related stocks due to inadequate environmental disclosure, but lacks explicit discussion of physical climate risk disclosure. Exactly. So now it's now then up to you. If you think 34% is too low for you to include in your literature, you can then make the edit using the agent transition versus fiscal climate risk European financial market. That's also 33%. Analyzes how investors price fiscal and transition climate risk in Europe, but does not examine firms' fiscal risk disclosures or link pricing to such. Oh, that makes sense. It's still relevant though, but just that it's not linked to pricing. Yeah, brilliant. So yes, you can literally click on each literature if you want to verify how concrete this reference is, if it is valid at all, if it relates to it. Apart from the grading report that I took you through, you can also verify the references by clicking on the PDFs, reading it and see it actually says what it's saying in this review. And these are the 15 references. SciSpace has a thing called a verified report. So when you click on tools, you can see deep research, systematic research, and you've got the verified report. That basically checks every citation before it hands you the final report. Yeah, so I'll just ask it to generate a verified report and citations. Yeah, since you already have the literature review document in the chat. Yeah, so all that I've got to do was to invoke the verify the report agent. Yeah, so I will generate verify report on how investors price. Let me start inspecting the source data to understand available evidence. Let me continue reading to get a better sense of the full data set. Yeah, now let me check them all. Good. Yeah, so now it is writing the report. Yeah, so it does it step by step. There's now verifying citations in the introduction. Yeah, and then introduction citations are verified. Yeah, so now the report is ready. Just open the final report, and you can see there's an introduction. So I just pick some random references. Let's check this one. Yeah, so let's check this one. That is how regulatory disclosure of transition and physical. So you can just click on the PDF. That's the paper. And then you compare. So let's take note of the title. That is how regulatory disclosure of transition and physical climate risk affects CDS term. And what does it entails? Some physical risk disclosures in regulatory filings are associated with decreased credit default swap spread. Okay, now we go to the literature review and let's see if there's anything about credit swaps. Okay, yeah, this one. Let's see. Yeah, how regulatory disclosure of transition and fiscal affects. Yeah, so there's the paper. Now, what does it say here? When disclosure primarily sharpens existing uncertainty, investors may reduce credit spread and bid prices up. Once they defines physical risk, disclosure decreases CDS spreads by clarifying exposure rather than revealing risk fundamentals. Yeah, so that's basically it. This paper confirms what's in the verified report. So when you look at the verified report, it says physical risk disclosures in regulatory findings are associated with decreased credit default swap spread. Yeah, it's saying something. It relates to what's written in the literature review. Let's look at this verified citation as well. Firm level climate change exposure. What does it say? What does it say? Evidence on investor pricing of physical climate risk is mixed. Some studies document that firm specific climate risk exposure are priced in equity and options market. So let's take note of the title, firm level climate change exposure. Go to the literature review. I think I saw it somewhere. No, not this paper. Not this one. Oh, right. Firm level climate change exposure. And what are several studies find structured credible disclosure associated evaluation premiums and better liquidity. And analysts forecast upwards, implying higher, longer run firm value from transparency. Yeah, so that's it. So this statement is kind of like verified in the citations report. Yeah. Yeah. So this is brilliant. You don't have to take my word for it. You can just generate a verified report and then compare it to other citations in your literature review. And like I said, it checks every citation in your review before it hands you the final report. Yeah. And in their benchmark report or their benchmark SciSpace is a benchmark paper. It rates 97% citation accuracy. That's how accurate it is. So instead of like manually verifying from the paper title or abstract, you get to see the exact context in which the paper was cited in your literature review, and you can then make that a comparison. And the report is actually nice because it gives you the sections, introduction, evaluation effect of physical climate risk disclosures, and then gives you the context, the papers that they cited, and what those papers will probably talk about. Yeah, this is brilliant. To be honest, you should always, check, verify the reference. That's what I would do. I'll still check the reference myself. I read the top 5 papers to properly before I cite them in the chapter, if I should say. And the report that we have here, it just tells me that the methodology is sound, the source says it. It says roughly what it claims. Exactly. But I'll still read it myself. And then one last thing, if you already work in Claude like I do, yeah. And if you don't, most of my channel is on why you probably should. Yeah, so I'll head onto Claude. Onto Claude, SciSpace has a connector for Claude. So you go to customize, hit on connectors. That you can set it up once. Let's search for connector. Let's add a connector. Browse the connectors. Yeah, when you set it up once, and then you can pull raw cited papers into the same Claude conversation that you are already writing in. So SciSpace. Yeah. So you can see SciSpace connect to Claude. So now you don't have to be copy and pasting abstract across. No hitting context limit here. And with this one, your Claude is now linked to. If you go to your connectors right now, Yeah, so your Claude is now linked to your SciSpace that you can literally ask any question at all in Claude. So let's start a new chat. Yeah, so now in Claude, I'll just ask Claude this question that using SciSpace, pull the three most cited papers on physical climate disclosure and firm level cost of capital with the effect direction need find. So let's see what Claude does. Yeah. And mind you, this setup only took me under 5 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. So you have a Claude thinking about it. Yeah. And that is the SciSpace connector. You can see. Let me allow once. So Claude is basically communicating with SciSpace and pulling these out. Brilliant. Brilliant. So climate risk, capital structure, 175 citations, a firm level climate policy, climate change exposure. Yeah, so this is Claude connected to SciSpace at work. And then it gives me the answer. These are the papers and gives some two caveats. Yeah, that's Claude is a SciSpace. Yes, so that's the full demo. Literature review to verify citations in one platform on a real PhD question. And that's your semester started. So if you want to try it, my link is in the description. It is UTM, so you know it came from here. And then there's a discount code sitting on the screen right now. Grab it before you scroll off because I am not staying in it twice. Everything else I use is linked down there too. LibKey, the benchmark white paper, a verified report, a walkthrough, and the Cloud connector. So if this saved you the 4-tab routine, hit the subscribe button. I'll put one of these out every week. See you in the next one. Thank you.